Jai Vishnu Bhad Paramahamsa Prabhupada Saraswati Samad His Divine Grace Srila Asa Bhakti Vedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Vishnu Bhad Paramahamsa Prabhupada Saraswati Samad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srila Thakur Bhakti Vinod Ki Jai Srila Gokishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Vasant Panchami Ki Jai. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Go Premananda Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All together, please. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Ganandana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yukta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Krishna Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karana Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagadpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapcha Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhana Sudadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So, reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation commentary Srila Prabhupada, today's verse number 2, right? Yes. Of the 18th chapter, which is entitled The Perfection of Renunciation. Please repeat. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. Kamyanam. Kamyanam. Karmanam. Nasham. Sanyasham. Kavayo. Vidu. Sarva karma. Falatagyam prahustyagam vikanshita Shri Bhagavan Vacha Kamyanam karmanam nyasham Sanyasam kavayo vidu Sarvakama phalam tyagam prahustyagam vikanshana. So, please repeat. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Kamyanam, with desire, karmanam, of activities, nyasham, renunciation, sanyasham, the renounced order of life, kavayaha, the learned, vidhu, know, sarva, of all, karma, activities, phala, of results, tyagam, renunciation, prabhu, call, tyagam, renunciation, vikanshanaha, the experienced. So, translation, Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the giving up of activities that are based on material desire is what great learned men call the renounced order of life. And giving up the results of all activities is what the wise call renunciation, tyaga. Please repeat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said,
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said,
the giving up of activities that are based on material desire is what great learned men call the renounced order of life, sannyas. And giving up the results of all activities is what the wise call renunciation, tyaga. Purport Srila Prabhupada. The performance of activities for results has to be given up. This is the instruction of the Bhagavad Gita. But activities leading to advanced spiritual knowledge are not to be given up. This will be made clear in the next verse. In the Vedic literature, there are many prescriptions of methods for performing sacrifice for some other purpose. There are certainly sacrifices to perform to attain a good son or to attain elevation to the higher planets, but sacrifices prompted by desires should be stopped. However, sacrifice for the purification of one's heart or for the advancement in spiritual science should not be given up. Yes. Mukham karochi vachalam pangam laite girim yar kripa tamaham vande Sri Guru Ninatarinam. So this answer here is the answer to the question in verse number 1. Arjuna said, O mighty armed one, I wish to understand the purpose of renunciation, tyaga, and of the renounced order of life, sannyas, the killer of the Keshi demon, master of the senses. So Arjuna is asking information on two words, two ideas, renunciation, tyaga, and the renounced order of life, sannyas. So we hear tyagi. What is a tyagi? We hear that word often, right? So, and we also hear about sannyas here in our society, in Vedic society. But here is the actual definitions that are coming. And so why does Krishna come to give these definitions? Why is this the ultimate verse or the ultimate chapter? If you remember, at the end of the 16th chapter, Krishna said, Yakshastra Ustrishya, the person who gives up the Shastra. Now the Shastra is that which tells us what is to be done and what is not to be done. Privritim cha, nivritim cha. And that is Dharma. Because Dharma has those two qualities. You should not do this, but you should do this. So Krishna says, if you give up the Shastra, then you will act whimsically. And if you act whimsically, na sukam, no siddham, no param gatim, you will not become happy materially or spiritually. You will not attain any kind of perfection. You will not param gatim, you will not become spiritually liberated. You will not go to Goloka, Haridam, whatever. So the Shastra is the guide to those higher positions. The Shastra is the highest standard. you're all experienced devotees, right? We have three standards. We have the Shastra, then we have the Mahajans, the big acharyas, and then we have the local guru, if you like, the bona fide guru that guides us hands-on in our life, guides us in the Shastra and gives us advice. And that is expanded into all Shiksha gurus and so on. So but the highest is Shastra, Veda Pramana. The Vedas gives so much information, material and spiritual. And what is the proof? The proof is the Vedas itself. Just in the same way that, say I have a smartphone, when I purchase a smartphone, there will also be a manual. And that manual will guide me. This has created the smartphone, and there's a manual instruction book to help me use that. And then when I use the manual and I learn how to operate the smartphone, then I see this is the correct information. So the Vedas are like that. Yes, initially the Vedas are there and they may be extraordinary, talking about a spiritual world that is beyond the senses and so on. But by practicing the Vedic knowledge under the guidance of the Mahajan and the bona fide guru, we see this information actually works. It is related to my circumstances in the material world. It is related, and I'm learning and I'm getting vision of the spiritual world. So that is Shraddha, which faith. Now in the man-made religions, they cannot really give realization. So what they stress is you must have faith. You must believe. And if you believe, that is the price of perfection. So their idea of faith is belief. But the Vedas' idea of faith is experience. We don't say just believe and have faith in some kind of mental exertion. We say no, experience the validity of the Vedic knowledge, experience the potency of the holy name, experience the satisfaction, intellectual and mental and so on, that is there in the Shastra. And therefore Veda Pramana, because the Vedic knowledge, when it is presented, as Prabhupada emphasized, as it is, without change, then it has its potency to convince, to give experience. And so therefore a devotee, he experiences the transcendental realm step by step, and he realizes the nature of the material world directly within his heart, within his consciousness. And so he becomes very fixed. And this is the meaning of Putana, Krishna. There's one essay by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta called Putana. And it explains that Kamsa, the materialist, is always trying to destroy the baby Krishna, sending Putana. So Putana represents false teachings and negative ideas about religion. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta very brilliantly in the essay explains that once the baby Krishna has taken birth in the consciousness of the devotee, then that baby cannot be destroyed by all the Putanas in the world, because that baby has his potency to give experience of material knowledge and transcendental experience. So all the talk of the atheists and the mental speculators and the communist idea, the capitalist idea, globalist idea, all these different Putanas in the material world, they cannot destroy the baby Krishna, who in this context represents the devotee's growing faith, growing experience of transcendence. So the Vedas are their own proof. And similarly, bhakti is its own proof. Because bhakti does not depend on anything. It doesn't depend on karma or jnana or so on and so forth. It just depends on itself. It is self-sustaining. It is like a complete food. It doesn't need anything. It is itself absolute. So yoga we can understand now, as Prabhupada explained, Lord Chaitanya, Pridivrichya Nagaragada, that now the world is in transition, and you will find that Krishna consciousness, yoga, meaning experience of the Supreme, will spread throughout the world. And that's what's happening. Even though we may be imperfect in our own way, we're giving the people the Maha Mantra, we're giving Prabhupada's books, intellectual ideas, and these are giving experience to the people. This is giving knowledge to the people. And so now, all over the world, there are yoga societies, meditation groups, so on and so forth. And people are flooding to these things. And this will continue, go on and on. And that's why India is a special country, Bharatvash, because it is the home of the Vedas. So the people in Bharatvash, they experience that. If you stayed in India, many of you, of course, have stayed in India, there's so many ordinary people in India that they may be just sleeping on the floor in the road, or they may be in an office in the Nagapalika or whatever, but they all have faith in the Vedas. They all know, because they've all experiencing. And you can see that now. The temple is crowded, right? And especially now, Vasant Panchami, the deities are dressed in yellow, everyone is joyful. This is the first day of spring. So this experience of the Vedic knowledge, transcendental knowledge, this can only grow. Because Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Bhaktivinoda, all the great acharyas, they have brought the baby Krishna into human society. And he is living now in the midst of Kali Yuga. He's in all where the communist globalism, capitalism, thisism, that-ism. And they cannot satisfy the people. The people are disturbed. They never could. But now it is becoming pretty obvious that people are disturbed. But at the same time, they're taking to yoga exercises in the morning. They're becoming vegetarian. They're chanting Hare Krishna. And then going down the pub. It doesn't make any difference. The baby Krishna is taking root in society. And that reminds me, I remember Mukunda Das, he's sannyasi now, he was telling the story that they would go to see the Swami. They used to call Prabhupada the Swami. And they would have the kirtan in 22nd Avenue in New York. They would listen to the kirtan. And then Prabhupada would speak from Chaitanya Charitamrita, because the other books weren't published, but he had a copy of CC, and they would ask questions. And then maybe there would be some prasad. But then after that, they would go to the coffee shop around the corner, the group of devotees, have a coffee and a sandwich and say, what do you think about what the Swami said? So they're taking coffee, and then Brahmananda once told me, they once went back to Prabhupada and they said, Prabhupada, is this everything? that we just chant Hare Krishna and take prasadam and learn the Vedic knowledge? Is that what we have to do? And at that point, Prabhupada introduced the regulative principles, and you should start chanting, and you should try to start chanting a certain fixed number of rounds. So this is what's happening in the world today. Prabhupada and all the great acharyas of Lord Chaitanya, they have put baby Krishna in human society. And baby Krishna is growing. And so when I was doing the research for Vasant Panchami, because I gave class this morning, and there's so many websites, and they're describing the Sikhs practice in this way. Even there is the Sufis, which are associated to the Muslim groups. They practice in this way. Everybody. So this is, the Vedic knowledge is becoming re-established. It is the baby Krishna is growing in human society. So this knowledge is there, and it is based on the Shastra. And so, if the Shastra is presented nicely and accurately, then this is the path of perfection. The Vedic knowledge is transcendental, so we need the Mahajan, Mahajena Gatasva Pantha. We need the guidance of people who are realized in that spiritual knowledge, or else we will tend to make mistake. But we listen to the great realized souls, and then we understand very easily. And then that comes to our local guru, our Shiksha gurus and Diksha gurus in our association, and we encourage each other in the realization of transcendence. And so that's the 16th chapter. Krishna is explaining, you must not give up the Shastra, and rather you should understand what is to be done and what is not to be done by the Shastra. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta always emphasized, we know now, right? Book distribution, Brihad Madanga, giving this knowledge. And Prabhupada took that idea all over the world. And we should understand in the time of Srila Bhakti Vinod, the story goes that he had a lot of trouble just to find Chaitanya Charitamrita. And the message of Lord Chaitanya was largely covered, and they took the stories of Radha and Krishna as a kind of material romance. And so Vaishnavism had become covered by these upper sampradayas. But Bhakti Vinod, he re-established the transcendental nature of Krishna's pastimes. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta expanded that, defeated all the upper sampradayas in India, and then Prabhupada took that knowledge all over the world. And so we see now that this is the wave of Lord Chaitanya's mercy is going all over the world, and it is embodied in the Shastra. So the Shastra is very important, and we see we're very fortunate. The brilliance of Srila Prabhupada is that he's able to explain the Shastra in such a clear way, that if you read Prabhupada's purports, all of a sudden you understand everything. They are empowered. Prabhupada is specifically empowered to make things clear. So the Shastra, when it's understood, gives experience and satisfaction to the soul. And you're all experienced devotees, and that's what sustains us. So we should help introduce people into this knowledge. We should understand that everyone is as Lord Chaitanya said, Amara Agyaya Guru Tara Eidesh. Whoever you meet, tell them about Krishna Upadesh, and in this way become a guru and spread this knowledge. So who is Guru? Krishna Tattva Veti, say Guru Hoy. So we all know something about Krishna Tattva, so we should spread that, and by doing that we will gain the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. We'll realize Krishna more and more. So anyway, then the 17th chapter was there, and that started with a question by Arjuna, if you remember. Arjuna asked, if somebody does give up the Shastra, what happens to that person? And then Krishna said, well, people in the material world, without focusing on the Shastric guidance, they will be in passion, goodness, or ignorance. And so they will act in this way if they're this and that, and they'll concoct their own material religions and so on. And that's what we're talking about in the material world, because the people don't know the Shastra, which should be the basis for a society. Knowledge is always the basis, or the stories of a society, or the basis for the construction of the sociology of a society. So what we have now is very mixed up society. A bit of this, a bit of that, a bit of this, a bit of scientific, this, and it's a big hodgepodge. And nobody is satisfied. So they're turning to self-destructive things like drug use, alcohol, so on and so forth, becoming more frustrated. So Krishna, in the previous chapter we've been discussing, he explains how the people in the mode of goodness, without Shastric knowledge, how they act, how the people in the mode of passion, they act, and how the mode in Tamagun act. And he describes it in terms of yajna, dana, tapasa. And they are the contents of a religious system of dharma. Yajna means that which is done for the other, particularly the concept of God. I'm performing rituals or prayer or meditation as an offering, as a yajna. And then the other element of religious system is generally dana, that I should give in charity, not necessarily just money, but I should give charity in kind words, in help, in sociological help. I should perform all these activities. Then tapasya. So religious system means tapa. In the modern demoniac idea, if it feels good, do it. But all religious systems say this is what you should do and this is what you should not do. So that was discussed in relationship to the three modes of material nature in the previous chapter. But now Arjuna is moving the conversation onto yajna, dana, tapasa in terms of transcendence. That they shouldn't be done under the influence of the three modes by somebody without Vedic knowledge, but rather they should be done under the guidance of Guru, under the guidance of realization of transcendence. And how to get that realization, that is the question. How to get it not being inspired by the three modes of nature, the pushing and pulling of the interaction of karma and the material energy, but how to act in that way inspired by the Supreme Lord. Because that is the ultimate goal of all religion, is to get in touch with Krishna, Chaitaguru, with Krishna in the heart, to actually reciprocate with Krishna. That is part of the symbolism of the Ras Leela dance, right? The gopis rush to serve Krishna in Kartik, and Radha and Krishna are in the middle, and all the gopis are dancing with Krishna. Krishna expands. And one gopi is dancing like this, and Krishna is echoing and reciprocating with her dance. Another gopi is dancing in her style, and Krishna is reciprocating, echoing, and interplaying with her movements. So that is the goal of religion, to interact, to relate to the Supreme Lord and the Supreme Lord's devotee in this dance of ecstasy. That is the purpose of the spiritual world. That is the invitation of the spiritual world. Don't reciprocate with Krishna in the form of the material energy. Reciprocate with Krishna in the form of transcendence, in the form of his devotees, in the form of Gaunitai, in the form of the Astashakis, in the form of Baladev. Reciprocate in that Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. That is the purpose. So the Yogya Dana Tapasa here is described how to perform it that gives you entrance to transcendence. Because we all have to perform yogya, we all have to sacrifice our time, our money, our energy, our words. We all have to spend money down, we have to help one another, and we all have to tapa, we have to control our senses. So how should we, what is the mood we should cultivate? So that's what the first question is about. I wish to understand what is renunciation, tyag, because we often hear tyagi, and what is sannyas. So Krishna in one verse, he tells that, right? He said, giving up of activities that are based on material desire is what great learned men call the renounced order of life. Yes. So, like you're saying, the inspiration under the modes of material nature is to enjoy the material energy. But we're being pushed. If you're in the mode of passion, you're going to be pushed into passionate activities. Sensuality, wine, women and song, increasing material opulence. If you're in tamagun, and of course people are in a mixture of the modes, but basically to understand, if you're in tamagun, you may be addicted to drugs, laziness, illusion, alcohol, speculation, darkness, madness, and you're pushed to act in that way. You may become a criminal or some way or this and that. If you're in the mode of goodness, you're more in harmony, but you're pushed to attain some kind of happiness. Humanistic ideas. I love you and you love me, and we're all happy together in the material world. So Krishna says no. You should not be pushed by the material desire for some personal achievement according to your modes. Rather, you should, and Krishna first here, he explains it in a negative way, giving up activities based on material desire. So, but there in the purport, if you remember, we should perform yogya inspired by spiritual desire. This is the thing. Instead of being pushed by material desire, we are naturally active. We are to be provoked into activity by spiritual impetus. And that is a sannyasi. And that is bhava. We know the stages of bhakti, right? Ato shraddha, sadhusanga, bhajana kriya, anathanivritti, nishta, ruchi, ashakti, and then bhava. Bhava is the beginning stage of sustained spiritual emotion, attraction to Krishna, that is not just intellectual or satisfying, but it is a desire to serve. So that is Bhava Bhakti, and that condenses into Prem, where the devotee is just impelled by the desire to serve Krishna, Gaunitai, and Krishna's devotees by spiritual desire, which is called Bhava. So sannyas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is very clear in Jaiva Dharma. He says, sannyas should not be taken before the stage of Bhava. Lord Chaitanya, he took sannyas, because he was so entranced in bhava. Of course, he's Supreme Lord, but he was showing to us that we should perform bhava and sannyas when we cannot engage in material activities, because our heart, our impetus, our inspiration is based on prem, on priti, on a loving affection to the Supreme Lord. So somebody who is fixed and learning that, he cannot really turn from that and then engage in mundane welfare work and mundane charity and mundane sociology, because his heart is flowing to transcendence and he's fixed on transcendence. So that is sannyas. When the heart, the consciousness is flowing towards Krishna, bhajitam pritipurvakam, with that loving emotion, that is sannyas. Now no longer inspired by the material modes, but one is inspired, pushed, if you like, impelled by this awakening Krishna prem. Bhava is the beginning stage. So Chag, we also hear of Chagi, and sometimes we, a Chagi is a person that only has a kopin and one cloth. So that's very good to be renounced tapasya and so on. But a Chagi here, he is giving up giving up the results of all activities is what the wise call renunciation. The giving up the results. Now, what does that mean? That may be a bit hard to understand. Giving up the results. What it means is not that you're getting the result and giving it up, because there is a result to all activities, karma, phal, the fruit of action. But what this means is, this is on the other side of sannyas. The sannyasi is impelled by spiritual emotion, bhava, and he is giving up the result or any fruit. This is called ahoitiki bhakti. We were talking about this, that in the transcendental world, people are performing bhakti without a personal agenda or a personal motivation. They have given up. It doesn't enter their mind that I will get some fruit. I'll dance with Krishna in the Ras Leela so I can get status amongst the other gopis, or I will get some personal fruit. Giving up the result of activities, chag, means that I am not considering the result. I don't care for that. So if you think of activity, on one side, this is activity. On one side, I'm impelled to activity by bhava, and I'm not looking beyond the activity. That's chagi. You understand? So on one side, sannyas means there's no impetus, personal agenda to perform an activity. The agenda is bhava, pritipurvakam, loving affection. And on the other side, I'm not looking to get the result of the activity. So the impetus and the result, they're pure. That is transcendence. So this is what Krishna is explaining. Now previously, Arjuna, in the previous chapter, I explained how people are pushed and pulled by the material energy. They want to achieve this in the material. They have this philosophy in the material energy. But now I'm going to teach you what? Sarvadhamma prijajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayasyama. So this is the introduction to that conclusive verse we all know. Give up all impetus to material action or material desire. Give up all idea of karma phal, a result from my activities. Just surrender to me. Surrender. Now, I remember when I was first reading the Gita, I said, what does that mean? Surrender to Krishna. But what it means is just surrender in love. Surrender to me in bhava. Surrender to me in causeless devotion. Ahoitiki apratiyata. Right, Lord Chaitanya said, what is that? Janmani Ishwari Bhagata Bhaktir Ahoitiki. Unmotivated by any desire for a fruit or unmotivated by material desire. My motivation is to give pleasure, to take shelter of Srimati Radharani in her service to Krishna. So my motivation is just to be pleasing, to serve as the spiritual liberated souls see fit as they want. I'm not applying for this or that in the spiritual world. I don't want anything bhukti mukti spriha from the material. I'm just impelled by bhava. So that is the meaning of surrender in the pure form, in the developed form. Now in the beginning we surrender to the order of the Guru and rules and regulations, but we should understand the Niyamagraha is one of the things mentioned by Rupa Goswami, that if you follow rules and regulations, but you don't understand the purpose, that is an obstacle to development of bhakti. But also, if you don't follow rules and regulations nicely, that is also an obligation. So the solution is to follow rules and regulations according to your position, brahmachari, grihastha, sanya, whatever, but always understand the goal is to develop a hoitiki bhakti, unmotivated. And that is the nature of the soul. That is the nature of Krishna in the spiritual world. That is the nature of Lord Chaitanya, that is Lord Nityananda, the Panchatattva. The residents of the spiritual world are not motivated to achieve some fruit. They're not impelled by a personal endeavor, agenda to perform activities. They're just impelled by ecstatic bhava, by Krishna Prem, by Prem Bhav, that is there. So we, as at least myself as a sadhaka, we should keep that vision in our mind of the spiritual world. And when we chant and when we study and when we do practical padasevanam, when we do smaranam, we chant Gayatri, we just do it as yagya, unmotivated. And then by adopting this mentality, our Krishna Prem will blossom. Because Krishna Prem is based on this unmotivated mentality. That is the motivation, that is the mentality, the consciousness of the transcendental world. So keeping this in mind while we are sadhakas is how we awaken our Krishna Prem. And I was just saying to Santosh in the car park this morning, Krishna Prem, we all know, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem, right? Sadhaka, it's there inbuilt in the heart. But Krishna Prem is not amorphous. It is not like a light. But Krishna Prem has different sthayi bhavs, moods, and they are the relationships. Some Krishna Prem is in Madhurya Bhav, some in Vatsalya Bhav, some in Sakya Bhav, some in Dasya Bhav. So when Krishna Prem awakens by this adopting the mentality of ahoitiki bhakti, then our Krishna Prem develops naturally. And therefore we should be very careful. Why am I performing bhakti? Is it for this or for that? But of course the motivations will be there because of conditioning, but we should replace that with a vision of purity of the spiritual world. So today is Vasant Panchami. We renew, it's a time of springtime, we renew our bhakti by getting, by the grace of Saraswati Ma, this concept of unmotivated bhakti. And we do that when we chant, when we perform sadhana, when we do smaranam, when we do Gayatri, when we read the Shastra, we do it out of bhava. We cultivate bhajatam priti purvakam, a mood of unmotivated devotion. And we put aside the conditioning of, I'm the center of the universe, I have to do things for of course you're all devotees, but we, like I say again, we maintain that vision of the purity of the transcendental residence of Adhokshaja. And then, so it says in there in the Bhagavatam, final point is that this Ahoitaki Bhakti is also, should be accompanied by a pratiyata, right? Like that Bhagavatam verse we've been discussing, Savai Pumsham Para Dharmo Yuto Bhakti Adhokshaja. Right? So the highest dharma is to render loving service to Adhoksha, the transcendental Lord. This is Sanatan Dham. Sanatan Dham actually means eternal, transcendental bhakti. And Ahoitaki, right, we just described, but a pratiyata. A pratiyata means unbroken. That means, okay, I'm chanting my rounds, Ahoitaki, and then I'm thinking, now what shall I do? For my enjoyment, or my interest. You understand? So we should, as Prabhupada says, Kirtaniya Sadahari, as it says, we should try to cut out activities that are not Ahoitaki. We should maintain this Ahoitaki, this unbroken mood, more and more in the development, in the execution of our devotion. Do you see my point? That like now you're very kindly coming and listening and inspiring me to speak, but after the class we don't go to the coffee shop and say, hey, what's the cricket score? Do you see my point? We try to maintain that. And this Kunti Devi at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, she says, oh Krishna, you in the forest, she said, oh Krishna, you are very inconceivable and beautiful. Please cut off my material conception of my sons I have to, and just let my devotion flow to you. Gange vodam udanvati. Let my devotion flow to you just like the Ganga. It's always flowing. You can put a big brick in the Ganga, it'll just flow over it. So Kunti is teaching us that a pratiyata, unbroken, constant flow towards Krishna. And so if we practice Ahoitaki Bhakti, and at the same time we observe, am I wasting time? Am I trying to combine my practice of Ahoitaki Bhakti with my own agenda, my own ideas? We should try to, apratiyata, lessen steadily our own endeavors for enjoyment, and then we can come to this mentality of Queen Kunti, where she is just thinking, I want my devotion to flow to you unceasingly. So this is the path of sadhana. First we have the right idea, and then we use all our time, just like Krishna says, if you eat too much or you don't eat enough or you sleep too much, we try to use our time in the practice of Ahoitaki Bhakti. Now, important point is, to be in this unbroken flow, we don't have to adopt very difficult tapasyas. What we have to do is just do a simple thing. Instead of talking about the cricket score, we get a book from the shelf and we say, I'm going to read the Upanishad. And then whatever our particular talent and ability is, we engage that timelessly, constantly, because we'll be very comfortable in doing that. If we want to make garlands, if we want to cook, if we want to be a painter, then engage that material propensity, talent that we have from past life. Let us engage that so that we can develop a hoitiki bhakti that is increasingly apratiyata. That is increasingly constant, like that flow. And then yenatma suprasidati. And then the soul will become perfectly satisfied. We should understand that if we go back and forth, then the mind is confused and unhappy. And then we can progress. And once Krishna sees that we're performing this tapasya, yajna tapasya, then he gives us all blessings. Your yagya dana, your unmotivated bhakti to me, and you have captured my soul. Krishna responds in the heart and gives perfection. So that is the path of sadhana bhakti. Understanding ahoitiki and then increasingly engaging in activities that we offer as yagya to Krishna. So if you don't like cooking, then be a 1 lakh a day man. If you like cooking, like there was used to Krishna Chaitanya, he used to cook every day, every offering. Vibhu Chaitanya, yes. In 1970s, I was here, I was Pujari then, and he would go in the morning into the kitchen and he would cook all the sweets, every single offering. So one day he went to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, I'm not chanting 16 rounds a day. Your cooking is your bhajan. So you see the point. He had this loving attitude and he wanted to cook everything for Krishna. All the sweets, can you imagine the labor every day? And that is a pratihata. And he was always, his eyes were always, right? You remember his eyes were always beaming. And he was always so respectful to everyone. So let those great devotees be our inspiration. And today is Vasant Panchami, the day of spring renewal. So let us renew our bhakti with these concepts. And through sadhu sangha, gain inspiration. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So thank you all very much for your kind attention.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna.